Hey everybody, welcome back for another video in the Analyze Your Own Swing series that I'm making. So this is video 3 of the Analyze Your Own Swing series. I'm going to talk about a short video about how to know whether you're outside in or inside out, and how do I know if you're hitting down on it too much or not. So we got one of my clients, Chris, here. Video on the left is one of his old swings. Video on the right is where we got towards. I think it was halfway through the off season. So video left is a very typical, very steep, over the top player. He was 87 club speed, which is pretty good for a 7-iron, but he was hitting down on it 7 degrees, and he was 10 degrees outside in, which is why his ball speed was only 109 ball speed, and he hit a lot of pull hooks or just weak fades. So you can see on the video on the left, very typical out over the top player. If I kind of play it frame by frame for you, he's very narrow in the backswing, and again, but that's not the point of the video. But he is very narrow in the backswing, and you can see in transition, his hands come over. His club is really steep. His club is almost the same as his lead arm there, as opposed to being along his trail arm. And you can see as he comes into the ball, the club is already thrown outside the hands at this point instead of being more behind. And then he cuts across it, and that's why he's 7 degrees down, 10 degrees outside in. So when we watch the video on the right, where we got towards, we gained a little bit of speed, 90 miles an hour with a 7-iron, but ball speed shot up to 120, 121-ish, and we were hovering around 5 degrees inside out, 4 or 5 degrees down, which is what I kind of like for this kind of 90 miles an hour swing speed area. That typically gives us very predictable push draws, which you can see some of the lines on the screen there. A very tight left start line pattern, not a single shot started right, which was nice to see. So you guys can see boxing definitely looks different. That's a story for another day. But what I really like is his hands go loop back. I have him loop it back in transition, which allows him to maintain his lead arm depth in the downswing, which allows his shaft to be way shallower, as you guys can see. So before, his shaft was almost the same as his lead arm. Instead, it is now matching his trail arm, which is what I like in the downswing. I like the shaft trail matching up with that trail arm. We know it's shallow, and then as it comes down into the ball, that club is still traveling on a trail arm line. The club head is slightly behind his hands. I know it's a little blurry, but you can see his club is not thrown out this way, and that's why he's hitting much shallower and much more inside out than where he was at. So when we compare these videos, or we'll kind of go to each checkpoint, more importantly in the downswing. So here's the top of the backswing for Chris. To start, that's the top of the backswing before he changed direction. And then this is the top of the backswing on the video on the right, which is the new one. You can see he's very narrow at the top with his trail arm very folded. His hands are just over his shoulder, so lack of depth. And now in the video on the right, his trail arm is less folded. His hands are way more behind his shoulders there, which I love. And so we got the depth, we got the width. His height's basically the same, which I love. And then as we continue into the downswing, you can see his hands work out. So at lead arm parallel in the downswing, his hands are already in line with his neck, compared to video on the right. We had him loop it back, lead arm parallel. His hands are still in line with his shoulders. So much more hand depth in the downswing. You can see his shaft is way steeper. This shaft is way steeper here. Let's say if I was doing it to the ground, 57 degrees or so, compared to video on the left. You can see shallower there. And then what's really killer is how Chris actually continues to steepen. You can see now it's way on top of, so that's his club there, very close to his lead arm, way higher than his trail arm. Compared to Chris on the next frame, shaft actually gets flatter, which matches up to his trail arm, not his lead arm. So you can see that shaft continuing to fall, whereas Chris continue to steepen, which is a no thing to do in the downswing. And as we continue at shaft parallel, the shaft really got thrown out this way. Club head is way outside the hands compared to at this point the club is more on the hands or behind the hands. So I really like a shaft parallel for your club head to be slightly behind the hands, never outside the hands. Like we never want that. Never want that. And you can also see at this point, you can see his trail foot is still on the ground on the new video compared to his trail foot his heel is already lifting up off the ground on the video on the left. So not very good on the left, unfortunately, much better on the right. And you can see it's much more extending through the shot now compared to video on the left. He stays very hunched over because there is no extension. Staying hunched, staying in flexion, which is the opposite of extension. So if you were to stand up straight and you extend, it's going chest out, chest up to the sky. If you were to flex, it's chest down like you're hunching. So if you stay in flexion or stay hunched over in the downswing, which is what Chris is doing on the left, it encourages more downwards angle of attack because the club never shoots back up out of the ground compared to now Chris on the left. He's pushing and extending through the shot much better, which is why his angle of attack is less and he's more inside out as opposed to outside in. So if you're someone who doesn't know whether you're too outside in, whether you're not inside out enough, or if you're someone who doesn't know whether they're too steep, this could be a good video for you to watch just to see how your positions are, how your club is traveling in the downswing. So this is a good example for you guys to look at. Of course, it's a small sample size. A lot of players play differently, but this is a really good. This is a very good reference for you guys to look at, especially since it's the same player, to show you guys how different it could be when you're 10 degrees outside in, when you're 5 degrees inside out, when you're 2 down on it, 7 degrees down compared to 5 degrees down, especially with 5 degrees inside out with 5 degrees down. So hope that makes sense. Any questions, let me know. I'm going to show you guys the swing one more time. Again, Chris on the left. 7 degrees down, 10 degrees outside in, 87 club speed, 109 ball speed. Not very good efficiency because the delivery is not very good. In the video on the right, he's roughly 90 club speed, 120, 121 ball speed, 5 degrees down, 45 degrees down, and roughly 5 degrees inside out. So 15 degrees of path change, which is amazing, way better delivery, little push draw, so we all want that, especially if you're someone who struggles with being outside in. So hopefully this video helps. Any questions, leave it in the comments below. I'll get back to them as fast as I can. And thanks for watching as usual, everybody.